We're going to do things a little different today. I'm going to give you a little preface about this episode. I normally don't, and I normally just drop my listeners straight into the conversation because that's how I like to listen to things. But today I'm going to do it a little different. So I reached out to Ben via Instagram, never met him before, never talked to him in person before our recording of this podcast. I discovered him from some previous guests of my show that had posted about it online. And, I just shot him a message and I said, hey, we make similar content and we both like to talk to people. So let's sit down and talk about what it's like doing what we do as creative people, making podcasts, talking to other creative people. And he was excited to oblige. So I went over to his studio. We sat down, we talked for about an hour and a half, and we had a good conversation about how we do what we do, why we do what we do. A little bit of this and that back and forth about how we choose to operate our programs. And, obviously his program is a little longer running. He's got 100 or so episodes, and I'm on episode 27 or so, I think, right now. And he's a bit more polished and professional than mine, and I like being a little rough around the edges. And, we both have a really good program, in my opinion. So I just wanted to sit down and talk to him about how he does what he does. And there were some parallels and differences, and it was fun to discover those. And I had a good time sitting down talking to Ben and being on the South of Scruffy podcast. So, you guys, I had a good time chatting with the man. He had a good time chatting with me. We both recorded it, and we're both going to put it out on our respective channels. So, go check him out. He runs the South of Scruffy podcast, and this is the KAANP. I hope y'all enjoy listening. I certainly enjoyed recording. Enjoy. I normally just set my levels on my board, and then say to hell with it.
Yeah, I'm the engineer here, though. I'm the engineer too. Chord on the left.
Right. Yeah.
There you go. Yeah, so I got to make sure if there's any weirdness. Like used to, so if people had their cell phones not in airplane mode, before I had these mics, these SM7s, it would cause interference, and I could hear it during the podcast.
Yeah, I've had that issue a little bit.
How's it sound?
I sound okay, I think.
Yeah, you can pull that like this far away from you.
Yeah, about right there.
Yeah, point it right at your pie hole.
My pie hole. Let's see, right there.
How's that feel?
Yeah, it's fine.
Cool.
Yeah, comfortable. Let's go.
How are you,
man? Sips of beer, I guess. I'm doing okay. Today has been a day of mildly enjoyable self-care. I went to the dentist and then I went and got a haircut. So
you look great.
Oh, thank you.
I wish we were doing video for this one so everybody could see you.
Well, I'm in public enough, so they can find me out and about. I'm easy to recognize. Just doing those things, and now I'm here after being mildly social.
So dentist and haircut, that's self-care?
Yeah, for sure.
You didn't get a massage or anything?
I needed a massage. I did not get one.
My wife got
I'm
me.
Sad about it.
My wife got me a Massage Envy membership for Christmas.
Have you used it yet?
No, I tried to yesterday, but they were closed because of snow. They were like, we canceled your appointment. We didn't tell you.
Oh, how sweet.
Yeah, wasn't that nice?
I mean, it's understandable. I don't blame them, but like a phone call would have been cool.
Yeah, it's not like they don't have my info.
Right?
Yeah.
I got you on file.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, it was an okay day. It needed to happen. It's been a minute since I went to the dentist, so I figured I'd go knock that out.
Yeah, clean sheet. You good?
Half good right now.
Okay.
I'm gonna do the other half later.
Okay. You got to go get drilled on.
Scaled.
Oh, I don't know what that is.
They use a specific tool to clean around your gums at the base of your teeth. Knock all that tartar junk off of there.
Okay. I don't know about that.
Apparently, I had a good bit of it, so they're just like, we got to get that out.
Yeah.
All right, got to work.
How long have you been in Knoxville?
I've lived in Knoxville for around a decade now. I think this coming February will make a decade.
Okay. You're from the northeastern part of the state? Or
correct. Hancock County, for those that know.
For those of you playing at home.
Yeah, for those of you playing at home, I moved here a while back, college, and then just stuck around town. Yeah. It's upper northeast Tennessee on the border of Virginia. Like I can be in Lee County, Virginia, like 30 minutes from my mom's house.
Yeah.
So really close to Virginia, and a lot of nice people and a lot of better scenery.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's nice looking up there.
Lots of good driving roads, lots of nice mountain views. It's a nice place to be.
Yeah. We lived in Cumberland Gap when I was born. I guess I was born in Knoxville, but then we moved to Cumberland Gap right after that. And like our, backyard up the street was in Virginia,
Yeah.
It's right there on the border. It's a poor part of the state. Bell County, Kentucky was right across the border too.
Middlesboro's up there. I used to hang out a lot there as a teenager.
Yeah, Middlesboro.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember when we were there, I think the household income for in Bell County was like $7,000 or something like that.
It's there's a lot of poverty in that part of the state.
It's a hard
for sure.
scrabble living.
For the record though, like I grew up like lower middle class, I'd say. Pretty average in a not so average place, I guess.
That's good.
It definitely helped.
Yeah. Well, school brought you down here?
And getting out of said small town.
Yeah.
Like I grew up here. I got family in town, uncles and some cousins and whatnot. So I usually...
You grew up coming down here then?
Yeah, I spent a lot of time down here as a kid. A couple weeks every summer for, a few years, and then just randomly, whenever I wanted to be down here after I got my driver's license. And
drive the hour and a half to the big city.
Man, the 90-minute drive, I can take 3 turns on this whole 90-mile drive.
Yeah, that's great.
And then I'm from Hancock County to Knox County.
Yeah. How far from the Tri-Cities are you up there?
Equidistant or so.
Is it a tougher drive though?
I don't enjoy it as much because I think the highway drive that you pretty much have to take there is not as pretty. But I'm biased. Like my sister lives in Johnson City. She'll tell you it's gorgeous.
Yeah.
And I went south. She went north.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Tell me about your podcast.
All right. So the podcast is the KAANP, and stands for the Knox Area Artist Networking Platform. It's just an idea I had and the particular execution of it where I wanted people to discover artists in a time where it was hard to. People weren't going out because of COVID and lockdowns and, wherever or whatever you happen to be, the circumstances upon you. So I thought, people listen to podcasts. I like talking to people. Surely this is an okay way to share artists so they can be found or, enjoyed.
Yeah.
And just wanted to give those folks a platform. People I run into, people I meet, other folks that I find on social media. I just extend the olive branch. It's like, hey, you want to talk? and sometimes we end up across the table, such as we are now.
Yeah.
But I just like talking to people, seeing what they do, how they do, why they do.
Yeah.
I pick their brains a little bit.
It's been going well, you think?
26 or so episodes in. It's been positive so far.
Yeah.
I like the experience of meeting and talking to people. But I also like sharing just as much because the backside of that and making sure people get it in a manner that they can enjoy is also a technical challenge that I like to attempt.
Sure. So what drew you to artists? Why the artist community?
I feel it's underserved, first and foremost, especially, in towns like this that have so much potential but not a lot of self-given spotlight. Knoxville's a big music city, but the visual artists don't get as much rep. And there's a lot of talent here, and there's not a lot of ways to find it.
Yeah.
So, I felt like sharing people and their art and their experiences through this format.
Interesting. So, just do you stick strictly to visual artists?
No, I just haven't branched out much
Okay.
as of yet because most of the people I've networked with so far are musicians or visual artists, engineers, brewers, mechanics, whatever. The gamut is wide as far as the term creative goes because I'm not trying to be too exclusionary with a rigid definition of what people do with their creativity.
Yeah.
I mean, it could be you paint pictures of clowns or something, or you built this custom hot rod that's a full tube frame, and all that technical stuff too is just as much of a creative process as making a piece of visual art as comparison, in my opinion, of being a creative person.
Yeah, I agree. With my podcast, it's like I started off just like artists and entertainers, and then that definition started to creep.
It gets fuzzy.
Yeah, it started to fuzz up a little bit, get a little bigger too, and then there were people that were doing interesting things in like academic spaces too that I wanted to talk to. And so then it's like, okay, well, I'm not just, I can't just be stuck in a genre anymore.
Right.
I'm now just able to talk to anybody.
Yeah,
and that's okay. But it makes it hard to then tell people in 10 words what your podcast is all about. Like, I interview artists and entertainers. That's easy. But like, I interview artists and entertainers or people who interest me. And the things that interest me are, then it's just like, it becomes a little harder to be succinct about what you do.
The concise sentence about it, though, is whatever it needs to be. But once they fall in the rabbit hole, it just gets bigger and bigger.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with that, like oversimplification in the tagline,
Sure.
It doesn't bother me.
It
does make it hard, though, 100%.
Yeah, you got to do it though. You got to have 10 words that say what you do.
I said I talk to creative people in and around the Knoxville area.
There it is.
I hope that works for everybody.
Yeah.
I really, really do.
Are you on all the platforms?
As many platforms as Anchor distributes to in its native network.
Okay.
I like the experience so far. I haven't been on there, but for maybe a dozen episodes or so.
Oh, okay.
So we'll see.
But you said you've done 20.
Yeah, I started with a different hosting provider and then switched to Anchor.
Okay.
Like halfway through.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
That's a whole. I wonder if I ever need to switch, like how hard it is to migrate.
It wasn't terrible, but it was mildly frustrating. I mean,
yeah,
as most like switch over scenarios are. But I would do it again if I had to. It wasn't a scenario that I would just hate to repeat.
Who were you with before?
RSS. It's
okay.
RSS.com. They're a hosting site. Yep.
I thought the RSS was the feed.
This is the site that started the feed, I guess.
No way.
I guess.
Okay.
But
I use Fireside.
I have no idea what that is. I've never heard of it.
It's fine.
It's fine.
Yeah. It's fine.
Well, it works for you, right?
Yeah, it
okay,
does.
Cool.
Yeah, it does. And then, you distribute to Spotify and Apple Podcasts and Stitcher. And then it seems like everybody else just kind of finds it from those three. Like there's like Google Play,
Yeah.
I'll get, metrics from all those places. And it's like X number of people downloaded you on something you've never heard of.
Yeah, I get that every now and again. I'm more surprised when people in India listen to my show.
I know. I am too.
Yeah, I have like 1.5% Indian listeners at this, in this period right now.
Yeah.
So I'm just like, what is going on here?
That's great.
This has to be a typo.
Yeah, I know. Or maybe somebody has DuckDuckGo, or like a what's it called? A DNS, where you use a different DNS server
or
VPN. VPN. Well, yeah, VPN, but then you can also make your computer think you're somewhere else, I guess. So you can watch Indian Netflix.
I'll take it. Yeah, so people in the UK have listened to my stuff. RSS. The one thing I do miss about the RSS stuff was that you had a heat map that was a 3D globe of the Earth, and you could see everywhere since the beginning. People had listened to your stuff, and I had stuff all over Eastern Europe and like Northern Africa, and I was like, why?
Yeah.
Why?
That's great.
But
how'd they find you think?
I have no idea. It was probably some like hashtag in those common languages that it's just like some stupid word, and then they just ended up finding my stuff. But I know if you search KAANP as just like a general tag on Instagram, a lot of content from India comes up. So that's the only real link I've ever found. Like, I don't know what it means or how it's relevant, but that's what happens.
Gotcha. So what'd you do in college?
I studied 3D design and visual communication. So I got one of them artsy degrees. And since then, the school has been shut down by the government. So I got this nice piece of paper that looks really pretty on the wall. But
what school?
About it. I went to ITT Tech.
Oh, okay.
So,
I thought you went to UT.
Most people do.
Yeah.
But, that's where we're at, so it makes sense.
Why did ITT Tech get shut down?
Oh, the predatory lending practices from the government and all that stuff.
Huh.
Yeah. And then they changed some federal regulations about for-profit colleges that made it to where they could not conduct business. So they just shut down all their schools.
Yeah. Is that when they became like Fountainhead College of Technology or something? Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do. And that was in North Knoxville, I think.
Okay.
And it was its own, and like
they stole the ITT
thing.
Tech jingle though.
Well, that's their problem. If they're not more creative than that, then that's a whole different issue.
Can you believe there's a room somewhere where people sit around and write those jingles for community colleges?
I can.
How exciting would that be?
I
actually know a guy who did it.
I bet it's one of those scenarios where you're just like, let's see what I can do with this,
Yeah.
or it's like, all right, fine, you just pull something out of your ass.
I bet it's actually a pretty fun way to be creative, because you get these constraints that are like, hey, guess what? You got to make a jingle for a community college that's, not that much fun.
Right.
Make it fun.
It's definitely its own challenge as a creative person, because you're either up for that or you're not. I think that's one of those, like, if you go into it thinking you can maybe do something about it, you might be a little better off, because some people can't work in those rigid guidelines, but sometimes it works. It's being creative is funny.
So you came here to go to college, or to go to ITT Tech?
Yeah, I did that, and I graduated in December of 13, and did some work in the field, and then did some not. And
What
then,
kind of field?
graphic arts.
Yeah.
I did
What's that
lot
mean?
of promotional materials,
Okay.
pamphlets, event flyers. I'm the creative director for SOS Entertainment, or one of them, and I'm in charge of most of the visual media that is representing that brand.
For SOS Entertainment?
Mm-hmm.
Which is what?
It's a production company here in town.
Cool. And what do you guys do?
I make art for these EDM productions.
EDM Productions. Nice.
It's projector visuals,
Nice.
laser, some laser stuff sometimes.
Dude, I gotta
And,
ask Sam Thomas. He showed me something the other night, and it was an EDM artist. You didn't even really see him during the performance, but it was like, what's that projected that like 3D projection mapping stuff?
Holograms?
No, not the holograms. Where you'll see him like
motion tracking.
no, where you'll see him project onto Big Ben, like the clock, or on the ice in hockey.
What is it?
What's it called? You know what I'm talking about?
Yes, I do. Hang on.
Yeah. You can't think of it either. It's a
No,
tough
you
one.
got me. Something mapping.
Yeah, it's like 3D mapping or something like that. 3D projection mapping.
Yes.
Let's
Let's go with that.
Yeah.
We know what we're talking about.
Yes. Do you do anything like that
I don't.
for these EDM shows?
I don't, but some of the people that get in and around the social circle do.
Okay. So you make like the visual experience for EDM shows,
Parts of them, yeah.
that's a big part of the experience for people.
It can be. But I have just as much responsibility as I don't mix them live for the stuff. I make the resources for them.
You make the assets.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that fella, who is quite talented most of the time, can make that also really cool in his own way. So it's a collaborative effort.
Wow. Do you try to get as psychedelic as you can?
It depends on the lineup for the show, because that theme doesn't fit everybody.
So if you get an artist, do you get a visual look to work with, like some grammar to kind of start with?
Sometimes, if they're really on top of their stuff, they'll have a package of files for you to mix up in your own special way for that event. And if it's a tour and they want a cohesive look for the whole tour with all the posters, they'll give you the assets, and then you can do what you want with it, and they'll okay it, and you can put it out there. Otherwise, if it's just the things I normally get to do with this particular entity, it's he says, we got these guys, they want a feel that looks like this on the poster, and let's see what happens.
How fun.
It's nice. And then sometimes it's a challenge. It's the same kind of scenario with the college jingles, I guess.
Yeah. You think?
It's real similar.
Are you
it
into
changes every time, and it's a certain set of
Yeah.
points I got to meet. So yeah, it's a similar situation.
Are you into the EDM stuff, or no?
I enjoy the shows. Yeah.
Yeah.
I really do.
What do you listen to in the car though? Podcasts.
I listen to podcasts, and I do listen to a lot of music. A buddy of mine, Ashton Brown, he just put out an album. I listen to his stuff a lot right now. I listen to a lot of classic rock, heavy metal, and then I do like a lot of EDM stuff, but that's usually what I listen to live, because I'll also paint these shows in person, do live painting. So
that's cool.
So if I'll listen to the people on the lineup and see if I like them, but if I don't like them, I'm still going to the show and painting.
Really?
Yeah.
Is that part of the package that Sauce does, or is that just you doing something for fun?
It's me plus Sauce at that point, because he does all the show stuff. I do the visuals, and I show up and I paint.
That's fun.
Yeah.
That's super fun.
and usually I have my computer in the car in case something's messed up. So like
Export some
yeah,
Adobe Illustrator files.
yeah, I can make things happen. So yeah, if I've got a brush or a mouse, it's okay.
Well, you went to school for art and you're working in art. I mean, that's pretty good, man.
I mean, it's not the full-time job, but my full-time job is pretty creative. I wrap cars for a living.
Oh, fun.
It's vinyl is an interesting thing, and that's the broadest general compliment I can say about it. Not that that's a bad thing, but
Right.
it's such a dynamic material that you can do all kinds of stuff with it.
Vinyl's pretty sweet.
I like it a lot. I can make simple things really pretty colors really fast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's fun. I've always thought about it being like people are talking about painting their cars. I'm like, could you just wrap it for about the same price?
It depends on the paint shop and depends on your paint quality. There are a lot of factors.
Yeah.
But I would say generally a good wrap is cheaper than a good paint job.
Really? What's the biggest thing you've ever wrapped?
The petroleum tankers?
Yeah.
I've done some of those.
Okay.
Not like the whole thing, but graphics across the majority of them. The Callahan Drive, Central Avenue Pike, Rusty Walls Honda dealership?
Callahan Drive. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All that blue on the facade of that building.
Okay.
I touched every piece of that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
That was cool. That's architectural. That's the biggest thing I've ever done.
What's the smallest thing you've ever done?
Pieces in an interior. Like
Of a vehicle?
Yeah, like, trim pieces and stuff on your entertainment console and all that in the middle, and your door handles and stuff.
Like you can brand stuff. People put their brand inside their vehicle, or what? Or just other things, other textures.
I mean, carbon fiber is really popular.
Yeah.
Like if it's, they'll black it out if there's a lot of silver, or change the texture of things. Like did a 4Runner once that didn't like the metallic texture on some of their dash, so they came in and got it wrapped in a different metallic texture. The factory one was not very nice, so they hired us to fix it up a little bit.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So with your podcast, you've made it like past. I don't know. I was talking to somebody about it the other day. It may have been on the podcast. That people do it, and they get 8 episodes in, they realize it's a shit ton of work, and then they stop doing it. But you've made.
Yeah, I've made it to 26 episodes, which is cool.
That's a lot.
It is, and it was 2-ish a month between December of 2020 when I recorded the first one for the first time, and there's a gap between when I recorded it and when I put it out.
Yeah.
I sat down with 2 of my really good friends, and we had a fun conversation about who we were and what we were doing and what we were trying to achieve as creative people in and around town. And then the rest of it was just kind of, bullshittery.
Yeah.
And, that's what I did for my year anniversary with it. I sat down with those 2 guys and another friend of ours that was really tight, and we had another conversation just like that. But, yeah, two episodes a month was a tight schedule for me and how my life is structured, but I pulled it off. Sometimes it was 3 a month, sometimes it was 1, but if you average it, I think it comes out to 2.
How do you feel about the idea that consistency is important?
I mean, it is because people expect it. If they didn't expect it, it wouldn't be important.
Yeah.
I do feel some sort of pressure about keeping it consistent, and I don't always have like 6 episodes in the can to feed people when I'm not like actively creating the content.
Right.
But I'm not mad about it, and I hope everybody understands that when stuff's late, I'm still trying to make a quality product. Like, not that I'm trying to sell them on it, but like, I want you to know I'm really trying, because I'm actually really trying to give you something nice. Which, if you listen to a span of the episodes, you will understand that I have now a greater technical understanding of the thing I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
Because I had to fix some shenanigans going on in my setup, and that was like jumping in the deep end for a minute trying to track some problems down. And I got it sorted out, and now my stuff sounds pretty good. So as good as I can make it with what I got.
Yeah. It's definitely an undertaking, and you hear a lot of podcasts that sound like shit, and the
first couple of mine really did.
My first one I know sounded bad.
I think does everybody's first one sound bad if you're not like corporate funded?
I don't know. I mean, so the reason my first one sounded bad is because I didn't have anybody mix it for me. I just did it myself the best I could, and so it was just all over the place.
I mean, that's where I'm at, and it's more of a technical challenge for me, and I don't want anyone else to do it because I don't want to give up that creative control yet.
Yeah.
Not that it's like a huge issue for me, but it's more of a thing like I want to learn. You know, I really want to make it work for me.
Yeah.
Because this is mine.
I'm somewhat.
I will definitely ask people questions if I have questions.
Yeah.
But I want to do the work. You
Really?
know? Yeah.
I'm a little conflicted by it because I do want to dig in and become proficient enough in the mixing side and all that to be able to get it and make it sound good. But I also feel like that's somebody's job in the world, and they do that, and they do a really good job of it. And I'm never going to do it.
Person.
Yeah, yeah. That becomes the next thing,
right?
It's like trying to find that person, and how do you pay him and all that. But yeah, that's it's a tough place to land, I guess. It's a tough way to figure out how to get there.
I don't mind the challenge because it's just another set of tools. Like if you're trying to learn how to use a different shaped brush, if we can use painting as an analogy, then you got to play with it. You got to mess with it. You got to do it wrong. You got to see what works for your hand. All those things. You have to build a finesse with the tool and a familiarity. So if I don't feel as if I've done my due diligence if I don't like legitimately give everything a good go, no matter how complicated. Like right now I have a project at home sitting in front of me that's like staring me down.
Yeah.
Like really giving me the daggers anytime I walk in the room. I need to put a new control board on a 3D printer, and I have to build a new firmware for it. I've built 3D printers. I've never built firmware. I don't know how to do it. This seems intimidating to me.
That seems like you need to find a guy to do that for you.
So I've thought about it, trust me.
Yeah.
But I want to give it a go because
build you want to build your own firmware for a 3D printer.
Yeah, it's a thing you can do on the computer. It's not like, you're basically filling in the blanks of this code for this specific board and this specific machines, putting in all the general quantities and measurements and blah, 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 all the information it needs to understand what it's working with.
Yeah.
And I've never done that before.
Yeah.
So I just want to learn how to do that because it's a task on the list of things that need to happen.
Do you think
I've never done it?
Do you think 3D printing is a big deal? Do you think it's a game changer?
Yeah, definitely.
I do too. Do you think it's? I mean, I don't know that it's on the level of electricity or an internet protocol, but I think it is. It's going to turn out to be a very important invention when we look back in 100 years.
So, for total transparency, I have a serious bias towards 3D printing.
Yeah.
I think it's a great technology. I've worked professionally with it in the past. It's a pretty neat tech. I like it a lot. I own 2 of them.
Yeah.
Like the thing that really tickles me pink about 3D printing is residential construction. Like I want a 3D printed house so bad.
Really?
Yeah, they exist and people live in them already.
How so if you wanted to 3D print a house, how do you do it?
Well,
where do you start with? You do the foundation.
You do make a foundation, and it's like a traditional concrete slab most of the time.
So you still got to dig, and you still got to pour concrete, and then you build a 3D printed house on top of it.
At this point, those normal processes are not exempt from this scope of work.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so you make that happen, and then once everything's nice and square and flat, clean build surface, it's usually a gantry style printer with a concrete pump that pumps a special mix of concrete to do this kind of thing.
What's gantry?
It's an arm, an articulated arm that moves around like a CNC machine.
Okay.
But it's just, like 30 feet tall.
Okay.
It shoots concrete.
Oh, okay. So it's a 30-foot tall arm that
it just moves around.
It's just a gigantic 3D printer.
Yeah.
That's pouring concrete instead of plastic.
Mm-hmm. Scaled up.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
How does it? What about forming it and making sure that it doesn't, like a mold, like making sure that your wall doesn't just spill out everywhere when you're pouring it?
It's the wall pad. There's a lot of ways to answer that question. First of all, and I am nowhere near smart enough to answer at least half of them.
So is there some kind of compound that keeps it rigid like a 3D printer does? Like you can stack 3D printing and you can build it up.
Yeah.
But if you pour wet concrete, shit just wants to get level.
It's very special concrete.
Yeah. Okay.
It's made specifically for this. It's not, the normal concrete you mix in your bucket in your backyard.
Okay.
Yeah, it's definitely not.
So when you said 3D printing a house, I assumed you meant 3D printing, each piece of it and then snapping it together.
You can do that too. That's
Okay.
that's definitely a thing. Yeah, the thing that's really cool about this piece of technology, in my opinion, is that you can implement it differently in different stages of the workflow, and apply that lens to that problem and figure out a great solution to that most of the time.
Yeah, it gets you out of it gets you out of confines of tools that you have. Oh, I don't have a jig to make that cut.
Yeah.
It's like it doesn't matter. You don't need it. You don't need it. Just draw it
Yeah.
on the computer, and then you can print it out.
And I've done a lot of that. Just draw it on the computer and print it out. A lot of my jewelry ideas happen that way. Like I'll have a shape and I'll just be like, ooh, I've never seen that before hanging around somebody's neck. I'm just like, yeah, that's cool. And then I'll just go make it.
Yeah. Have you seen a 3D printed house in person?
I have not seen a 3D printed house in person.
I got to get this out of my head. I got to figure out what this looks like when it's done. Is it a 2-story house? Is it a rancher? Does it matter? Are there limitations to what you can do?
Definitely there are limitations. Habitat for Humanity just put somebody in their first 3D printed home last week, I think.
Oh, wow.
It's a single level, like 14 or 1,700 square foot house. 3 bed, 1.5 bath, or something like that.
Wow.
And it looks as you would imagine, because you
Crude.
It's not, no, dude. It's not crude at all. It has windows and shutters and nice doors and a roof and all the things you would imagine. It's just the walls and all the vertical load structures are this nice layered concrete that you can paint or treat or do whatever you want to with after that.
Gotcha.
Like, you could stucco all that and make it look however you want.
Gotcha. I wonder how you run your electrical and all that. I guess you have to do it on the surface, huh?
You can drill into it and run it through the walls.
You can.
Yeah, or you can set pipes and stuff in the walls to run all your electrical. Like you can set all that stuff up as it's happening.
Oh yeah,
yeah,
that's cool. Have you ever seen it reminds me a little bit of like straw bale houses. Have you heard of those?
Yeah.
People just use bales of hay and build houses and then kind of chink over it or stucco kind of over it. But they use just chainsaws to cut out channels in it to run their wire and stuff.
Yeah, it's and they just shove it in there.
Yeah, and I don't know that it's that much cheaper than building an actual house, but it's insulated, baby.
Yeah, you're gonna stay warm.
You're gonna or cold or cool, whatever you want.
Whatever the weather says you're gonna be.
Yeah, that's super cool, man. You would think. So, do you know if they're any cheaper to 3D print?
So you still got to do the foundation. Generally, you still have to do the roof. Depending on the shape of the structure, that's different. Big roof, small roof, you can shape them almost however you want within the scope of design, because, you can only go so tall or so wide, and you can't have overhangs that are such an angle or more.
Right.
So you have some design limitations. I've seen buildings that are tall and skinny, and I've seen buildings that are, short and squat. So that's kind of the two extremes of where designs are right now, as far as I know.
So you do think that 3D printing is a game-changing technology?
Oh, yes, certainly. 100%.
Okay. All right.
It can do amazing things with materials and multiple materials.
And they're doing medical stuff with it too, right?
Yeah, you can print
heart valves.
Yeah. Well, heart valves have been a thing for a minute. They're printing tissue now. Like, you can print a kidney. Not that that'll work in a person, but they've replicated, the tissue of a kidney through that sort of workflow, which is crazy. I don't understand the bioprinting, but that's cut or bleeding edge stuff.
Yeah. So bioprinting is what it's called?
That's definitely a thing.
So what all do you know what all they're doing besides heart valves and tissues and all that? Are they actually getting that stuff into people?
Yeah, and then
bodies aren't rejecting it?
I mean, I can't speak on that.
Yeah.
I've seen it used a lot in craniofacial surgery, where you can take a scan of the other side of a person's face and kind of flip it and sort of work it around a little bit to fit the other person's face, and print sometimes a titanium replacement for the bone, or make a mesh, or some kind of support structure for what's there.
That's interesting.
It's so wild.
That's great. Especially, I mean, yeah, if you're thinking of somebody has had some kind of horrible accident where they're disfigured, and to be able to pretty much restore them to being what they used to look like.
It's used in a lot of prosthetics too, like mobility prosthetics. I don't know what the proper term is.
And stuff.
Yeah, people's leg cups. Like if you're an above the knee amputee, your leg cup can be 3D printed and to a scan of your leg.
Yeah.
So it can be as accurate as possible.
Yeah, when are they going to start 3D printing like retainers and mouth guards and stuff to where they're not
I think that's
$1,000 when you go to the dentist?
I don't know, but I would love to know myself.
Did your dentist hit you up for $1,000 this morning for a retainer or anything like that?
No, they did not, but they did make it abundantly clear that if I wanted the Invisalign equivalent trays, I think they're called Motto at Aspen Dental, that it would be an additional $3,000 that wouldn't be covered by my insurance. So I was like, oh, okay, no, thank you.
Yeah. Have you been there before?
I had not.
Okay.
So
You gotta be careful with dentists.
You do.
Head on over to Dickinson Dental. That's my buddy. He'll take good care of you, my man.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Brent Dickinson.
Well, there you go. I have health insurance right now, which is, I guess, a luxury. And I decided to use it, so I found somebody in the network, and I was like, well, I'm going to go get my teeth done.
There you go.
So,
Well, they look great. Your teeth and hair.
half of them look great.
Oh,
I had the right side of my mouth cleaned. For some
really?
reason.
And you're like, I got to get out of here?
Well, they only scheduled me for half, because apparently it takes 1 hour or so to clean, half of a person's mouth.
That's how they get you.
Well, I had a fun conversation with my hygienist, so it's all good.
Yeah, you got to be careful with those hygienists, man. If you get the wrong one, they will lie into you, man, or tear into you. They'll let you know everything you're doing wrong.
She was very gentle.
Good.
And she had very sharp tools in my mouth, and she was very gentle. So
see, I think they take advantage of that. They got the sharp tools in your mouth, and they're like, "I'm going to tell you everything you're doing wrong."
She wasn't like on my case.
Good.
But I did ask a lot of questions, and she was mildly entertained.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, it was all right.
That's a tough. I don't know. I'd rather get my hair cut and have a good conversation with the stylist than get my teeth cleaned and have a million things I want to say to this person.
Well, when I say a lot of questions, I ask like 4 questions. I wasn't sitting there trying to jabber and her not get her tools in my mouth,
Yeah.
So when she would like do the thing, oh, I'll be right back, and she'd come in, sit down, and get chatty, I'd be like, hey, what about this? Because last time I was there when I got my scan and everything, she shone a black light into my mouth to check to see if I had oral cancer. And I asked her what wavelength this ultraviolet light was, and she didn't know. And today I Googled it while I was there, and I was like, oh, hey, remember the thing? Dun-dun-dun. And she's like, oh, yeah, 460 nanometers of UV light, I think is how you say that.
Yeah.
And that's the wavelength of that particular light that shows you if you have oral cancer or not.
Now she knows.
And
she's not going to be stumped next
and
time
now I
some
know, too.
smart ass comes in and asks her.
Well, I'd already told her because she asked me why I had paint on my clothes.
Ah,
So,
okay.
I had like really neon paint on my clothes because I use really bright colors in my art.
Oh, yeah.
So she's like, what's with the paint?
Yeah.
And I said, I make stuff. I paint a little bit here and there.
Yeah.
And then I was like, yeah, I use black light because I make really bright colored stuff. And she's like, oh, yeah, well, I got one of these. Check this out. It's used for oral screening. Open your mouth. Blah, and then blast me with the light. So yeah, I was curious, and that's what the answer is.
It's great.
It was a great pursuit of knowledge. We both learned something.
Yeah. I went to let's see, I went 10 years without going to the dentist.
So that's a stretch, buddy.
Yeah, it was a stretch.
It's been like 5 for me, just so we're on.
Yeah.
So we're being honest.
Well, okay, I had a bad experience with a dentist. So I had my pediatric dentist or whatever that I went to till I was, till I grew out of it. And then I moved to California. And while I was in Los Angeles, I went to my dentist back home once. And then when I came back, it was time to find a new dentist. I went to this guy. He puts a camera in my mouth, shows me all the cavities I have in my teeth. And he's like, we need to, here's what I want to do here. Here's what I want to do here. And then just ran me through this whole thing, and was about to do $10,000 worth of dental work on me. And then I went back to my pediatric dentist like 6 months later, and I was like, just didn't say anything about my other checkup. And then I was like, do I have any cavities? She was like, nope, you're all good. And I was like, so this dude was just trying to take me to the cleaners? Is that what you're telling me?
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So I got really disenchanted with the whole thing.
Aw.
I know. It was a bummer. So I got kind of nervous to go back to one.
So how bad was it when you went back? Because that's the question now. Like, how bad was it?
How bad was it?
Yeah. Let's get into our dental hygiene stories here.
I am 36 years old. I've still never had a cavity, and I had a 10-year gap in going to the dentist. So
That's impressive.
I don't know if I'm a good brusher or have hard teeth. I don't know what it is, but I got lucky. I
I'll
would
just say
not
it's impressive.
recommend going
Right.
to not going to the dentist for 10 years. Now I'll go every 6 months.
Well, five was a stretch, I'll tell you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Did she have her work cut out for you when she got in there?
she did, but it wasn't extreme, but she's like, this is, she was excited to treat it. So I was just like, all right, cool. Like she said, I'm so glad you came in today. This old man canceled on me earlier and I'm having a really good time picking the tartar off of your teeth with my hand pick.
Yeah.
And I was just like, all right, cool. And she's like, this is really satisfying for me. This is why I love my job. And I was like, oh shit, that's what's happening. All right, cool. So I just laid there with my mouth wide open, let her pick at my teeth and just took deep breaths.
There you go.
Yeah. I don't hate going to the dentist, but since you see this glorious bit of red hair in front of you, I have to have more anesthetic than most average people.
Oh, redheads have to have more?
Yeah, that's definitely a thing, man. It is.
Yeah.
So,
my whole family's redheaded.
bless their hearts.
I know. I got a little bit here and there, but I've never heard that.
It is true.
Really?
Like it's medically proven true. Yeah.
More anesthesia?
Quantified. So she gave me several shots. I don't know how much she wouldn't have given me if I wasn't redheaded, but she said she knew what I needed because I was redheaded. So I said, all right, let's go.
She gave you a local anesthetic to clean your teeth?
They had to get up in my gums.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So she said it would hurt pretty bad because I did ask.
Yeah.
That was one of the 4 questions I asked. Like, how bad would this hurt if you didn't, shoot me all up before we got into this thing?
Yeah.
And she's like, I mean, we're getting like 5 millimeters up into your gums. It would probably really hurt.
Dude, I can't with the needles.
Well, it wasn't needles. It was like a machine that cleans the surface of your teeth.
I know, but she had to numb you, didn't she?
Yeah. Well,
So
she put like a topical anesthetic on it first, so I didn't feel the
yeah.
puncture. I mean, you still feel it, but it didn't hurt.
Oh, dude, I can't. That's why maybe that's why I'm a vigorous brusher, because because
you don't like needles.
I don't want the needle in my gum. I don't want the
not-
drill in my mouth.
It's not that bad. It's really not for me, but it is what it is. Like,
Yeah.
I get it. I don't like it, but it has to happen, so I'm just gonna let it happen.
So how's your how do you feel like the future of your podcast is going to look? You include more disciplines, more kinds of people
Oh yeah,
that you're having on and
for
coming
sure.
in.
Um,
What's your big picture idea with it?
Big picture idea, have it be self-sustaining enough to have maybe its own space that isn't my basement on a general basis.
Yeah.
And then, bring in a wider variety of people and have a nice, super optimistic, have a nice presentable place that is comfortable above all. Like comfort is the main thing here.
Yeah.
It sound good. It'd be a fun place to be and just, have cool people come talk. Like, as long as that ball can keep itself rolling, I'm pretty okay with what's up.
There you go. Do you want to keep, would you like it to be your only job? Or do you want it to just kind of supplement what you do?
So if it was my only job, that would be really sweet because then my work schedule would be really open.
Yeah.
And then that would have more time for me to be creative otherwise.
You might have to put out more than 2 a month at that point.
Maybe. Yeah. That wouldn't surprise me. But
Yeah.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
Because I have this workflow timed out okay. Like I know how much time it takes me to do these things, so I don't hate it,
How much time does it take?
I'll spend between 1 and 2.5 hours taping an episode, depending on who I'm talking to. I've had a couple 2-hour chats with some guests. That's a good time. I like the longer talks. And then post process could be anywhere from 10 minutes to 45 minutes.
Okay.
And then
So you don't cut it down?
no, that's
Cool.
that's one of my things. I edit it as little as possible. I mean, like if there's stuff on the front end that's just like casual banter,
Yeah.
and then I'll cut it to where it starts to get related to the content I want to present,
Yeah.
and then that's usually about it. Like if somebody has a song or something they want me to put in there, I'll tack that on at the end.
Yeah.
I really don't I don't chop it up. Because I tell people from the front end, like, this is an explicit conversation. My podcast is marked explicit. Like, this is a raw conversation between two creative people. You don't know what's going to happen. Just be aware that you might hear some shit you don't like.
Yeah. Well, I think it's hard to edit a long form conversation down and still have it maintain the integrity of and the nuance of a long form conversation.
Oh yeah, totally. There are tonal things through a conversation that if you listen to a long conversation, like the pace changes, the tone changes.
Sure.
The thing, it's dynamic as much as the content of the conversation itself. So when you chop those things up, put one in a different spot, put it next to something else, it doesn't flow the same way.
I agree 100%. And I think that's a different product. That's a different kind of product. If you want to edit a podcast, I think it becomes, one where you have somebody hosting it and then they're cutting away to, sound bites that happened throughout a conversation with somebody. And that becomes a different thing.
Yeah, I don't jive with
different
that.
Tool.
I
don't mind it. I don't mind like deep dive podcasts and investigative journalism podcasts. Like
I would rather watch that.
You would?
Yeah, that's a more visual thing for me.
Yeah, that's
because I want to see the
make.
thing. You're right, but I want to see the thing they're talking about.
Yeah, but like what about Serial or like This American Life or S-Town? Have you listened to any of those?
Mm-hmm. And I'm fine with those. Those are nice programs. I enjoy them. But some content I have a visual bias towards because I'm a visual learner.
Yeah.
Like if it's something I'm really interested in, I would be more comfortable like retaining that information if I've watched a video about it.
Have you watched Netflix Explained, that series?
I feel as if I have watched at least one of them.
Yeah, it's deep dives, like 15 or sometimes up to 30-minute visual deep dives into certain topics like cryptocurrency or
I think I did watch that one.
Sugar or the game cricket or sleep.
That sounds like fun.
It's super fun.
I love the science of sleep.
Yeah.
Oh man, brains are crazy.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah, they are.
I asked my wife one time because she's a medical person, but also like a holistic practitioner, healer in her past. And I was like, so is sleep more for your body or for your mind? And she was like, what do you mean? And I was like, well, is it more because your body needs a rest or because your brain needs a rest? She was like, well, it's kind of the same thing. Like your brain is part of your body.
Oh man, this is such a fun conversation. I
know.
Like those thought experiments tickle me pink because is consciousness part of the body or is it separate or is it just some weird thing in between? Like
sure.
do you separate it at all? Is it just what is it?
Yeah.
It's fun. I like when I get into a spirited conversation about such things.
Yeah.
It's great.
So my wife is also... Go ahead.
Consciousness is separate from the body, in my opinion, since the topic came up. For the record, I'm putting it out there right now.
Since you asked.
I think consciousness is separate from the body.
You do?
Yeah, I do.
Why?
Why? Oh, boy. That's a good question. I feel as if you're connected to it, obviously, but it's not the thing that it is you totally. So it's somewhere else. It's off. Like it is ephemeral or ethereal. It's in the ether, so to speak. So things can pass through it from it to you and you to it. And one of my things that I've experienced being a creative person, that some of the things that end up in front of me that I've created, I don't feel like were my idea.
Really?
Yeah.
So you felt like your consciousness was a conduit for somebody else's idea?
Not somebody else's, just an idea that wasn't exactly mine.
Okay.
Like I'm not going to sit here and tell you that somebody else's idea beamed into my head.
Okay.
I'm just going to sit here and tell you I have no idea where that came from. I just can't tell you I thought it up in my brain willingly myself.
Okay. I feel you. I'll buy it. So what about darkness? Is darkness a thing on its own, or is darkness the absence of light, which is another thing?
I mean, it's both of those things, honestly. Well, you can't have one without the other, so they're also like mutually exclusive. But you can't be mutually exclusive with oneself in this manner if it's a separate entity. So,
I've always thought it was the absence of light.
I'm here with both of those definitions fit. See, this is the thing. It's the different lens at the same problem.
Okay.
Like it's if you think hard enough through this lens, I think everybody can come to a common solution. Like, science, math, art, like it's all a different lens to the same kind of thing.
I got you.
There's some kind of universal source to all this creative power. Oh my God.
Well, so another question I asked my wife about the brain. Well, no, I didn't ask about the brain, but she's she's a physical therapist, and a yoga practitioner, yoga instructor, yoga therapist, and so she's really in tune with her body and the body in general. She's extremely knowledgeable about anatomy and physiology. But I was like, I asked her one time, I was like, if an engineer were to build the human body, what would they do differently?
Everything. Absolutely everything. 100% everything.
She said her biggest thing was our heads are too heavy.
They are pretty heavy, especially if you got a big head. Now, that's not even being sarcastic. Like,
Yeah.
If you got a big old noggin, like your back hurts sometimes.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
all that force on your spinal column, which
Yeah.
is maybe the most important part of your body, like
I mean,
to keep the whole limbic system working.
It's foolish. Like the human body is such. If you were to like analyze this as an engineer, it's so foolish.
Really?
Yeah.
So you think there's a lot of optimization that could be done?
So much, man.
Yeah.
And I'm just talking about like the way the body works mechanically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why is that? Like, but stuff doesn't like click together or knock around.
So knees are terrible joints. Like,
yeah, they're bad.
They're really bad. Like everybody knows somebody that's had a knee injury. I feel like.
Yeah.
Like tearing your ACL, like your meniscus, all that stuff, breaking your kneecap, which my sister did that once. It was terrible for her.
Ugh.
She can tell the weather now, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell you when it's about to rain because her knee hurts.
Yeah, exactly.
She a redhead too?
She is.
Yeah. A lot of anesthesia.
A lot of anesthesia for her as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just wild. But like, I feel like I watched a Discovery Channel program on this once about how an engineer would use more efficient forms from nature to build a human body, and they like turn their knees around backwards, kind of walk like a camel,
like an ostrich,
something like that. Yeah, some wild thing, and just change them. But that's the one thing I can really remember. But I was like, damn, look at that, walking around with his leg backwards and shit. The top of his feet's hitting his knee. Look at it.
He's a specimen.
Yeah, so I was just like, oh my god, this is so cool. I was like 12 or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, engineers have a laugh at the human body sometimes.
Yeah, I'm
for
sure.
sure.
Yeah.
Like shoulders are also ridiculous. Hips are all right. Like that's a really mechanical concept. But shoulders and knees.
Well, but everybody's
silly.
hips blow out. Like every old person has got a new hip coming.
Well, a
Just
titanium
about.
hip's pretty cool, dude.
Yeah.
Like,
But you would think the ball and socket would be a really good.
and they are until shit hits the fan.
Yeah.
Yeah. They have one really big stress point, and I think we all know where it's at.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't. The ball.
It's where the stem of the ball attaches to the joint, where it's like that almost 90-degree angle. or
Oh,
whatever,
yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people break their
Is that
stuff
the
right
part
there.
that goes?
Yeah, most of the time. Unless you take like a side shot and break your femur itself, it's a bad time.
The femur's the biggest bone in the body. It takes a
Yeah.
lot of pressure to break that bad boy.
People do it all the time.
I know. And then
It's
they're in
wild.
like full body cast pretty much because you can't bend that thing.
Well, my sister's cast when she broke her kneecap was like up mid thigh.
Really?
Yeah, she was scratching her knee with a coat hanger and shit.
Ugh. Have you broken any bones?
A toe once.
Oh, man, you lucky. Coffee table?
Running up some steps.
Nice.
Believe it or not. I was running to answer the phone. I was downstairs. Got into the foyer. 3 more steps until I was on the level of the house I needed to be. Slipped, fell, ran across the living room, answered the phone, did my business on the phone, which was nothing nefarious. It was my uncle. Like I think it was the week before my freshman or sophomore year of high school. I think it was my sophomore year of high school, and something like that. And broke the hell out of my toe.
Really?
I looked down after I got off the phone. I was like, that ain't right. Then it started hurting.
You didn't feel it when...
I was running, dude. I was in the zone.
Adrenaline.
Got to go get that phone.
Yeah.
Mom's like, go get that phone.
That's
and
not bad.
This is my Uncle Tony. I was like, hey, is your dad? He's like, is your dad home? I was like, no. But I think I broke my toe, so I'm going to have to get a phone. And he's like, oh, all right. Well, tell your dad to call me. All right, cool. Bye. Yeah. So then, my mom came up the steps, and she's like, it ain't broke. You just dislocated it and grabbed it and wiggled the hell out of it.
It's gross. I can't do the thing. I can't do the...
Yeah, bless her
the
heart.
body
Like, she
stuff.
meant well, but that
Yeah.
really hurt.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
That's pretty good. You're pretty fairly tall, dude.
I'm 6'4".
Are you really?
Yeah, I'm a little tall.
God.
I'm not super tall, but people ask me how the weather is sometimes. I'm
Yeah.
that tall, I guess. Yeah, I know. It's bad every time. I get more compliments by the little ladies that ask me to reach stuff in the grocery store.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah, they're so sweet.
Will they ask you to get cereal?
Like bags of flour that are on the top shelf. Like why?
Why? 40-pound bag of flour?
No, a
on
5-pound bag.
Oh, okay.
The 40 pounds on the floor, but they ain't bending over to get that.
Oh, yeah.
They're only Mexican biscuits this weekend. Like, you know. So that happens at least like once a month. Yeah.
Gotcha.
It's cool though. Sometimes I ask them to get the thing on the bottom shelf.
You should. Man, I can't bend over. I just want you to feel useless. Or I don't want you to feel useless.
Right. Can you please, man?
Can you grab
please.
that?
I did this. Can you do that?
I don't even need it.
Right. It's like why are the burrito shells all the way down there, or the tortillas all the way down there?
Well, what else we got, man? I'm really glad to meet you.
Same.
And to get to know you a little bit, and hopefully we can. I mean, we're working on the same kind of stuff, you know.
Yeah. Well, what's your one? So I have a core list of questions in my bit of media.
Yeah.
That I really like, and a lot of it is about like workflow or headspace or the mediums you've worked with and things like that.
Yeah.
So, what's your workflow like? What's your headspace for making this thing?
This thing?
Yeah.
I started it because I am a big podcast listener, and I started to notice that lots of people have interesting stories, and they're not proprietary to famous people.
Oh yeah,
you know
sure.
what I mean?
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of people with interesting stories out there. You just have to be curious and ask the right questions to get to it. And I just started thinking about all the people that I knew of in town, and how I've read, newspaper clippings about them, and a quote here, a quote there. But it's like you sit down and talk to this person, and there's a crazy, interesting story in there that you don't get out of an article in a newspaper. So that's why I wanted to start it, and then to get it going and get it off the ground, it took a few things. It took a name for the podcast. It took a place to do it, which is in progress still. I mean, 2 years, we're still working on it to get it perfect. And then, a format, music, album art, or, cover art for it. Like all that was like, it's like, oh man, I forgot. We have to do all these things to get it together. And then, booking guests, getting them over here, pretty much cold calling people that I don't know, and asking them, sending them a link to the podcast and saying,
hey, would you like this?
Yeah, would you like to do it? And now it's become easier because people are more familiar with it now. That now people reach out to me, and so I have to reach out to people less now, which is easier. Now I just have to schedule them and get them in here. And then, I mean, if you want to keep going with the workflow thing, like I'll we'll have them in on a Monday or Tuesday. If we're doing video, producer Sam will be here, and he will do the video switch, and he'll also record the audio. And then after we're done, we go our separate ways. Usually they stay and hang out for a little bit by the fire. We hang out. We do something bullshit for a few more hours sometimes.
Yeah, just hang out.
Yeah.
Because it's fun.
Exactly. And then, the next day or usually by about Thursday of the week that the week before the episode comes out, I will record my intro, my outro, send it all over to Sam, and then Sam will put it all together and mix it, get it sounding good, listen through the whole thing, make sure it sounding good. If there's anything that he wants to take out, he will. And then he uploads it to where it's supposed to go. And then it's scheduled to go out at 5 a.m. every Monday morning. And it does.
And it does.
And it goes.
Awesome.
That's the workflow.
That's a pretty sound workflow, it seems like.
Yeah, it's good. I'll do a lot of, the podcast also makes like ancillary work. So we have like the Patreon crowd, and so I will, I try my hardest to create as much content for them as I can, and I'll go through ebbs and flows where I'll do a lot, and then the next month I'll do a little. And,
right, it happens.
Yeah. And because I appreciate them so much, they're the ones who are helping us remodel the studio, so it's and helping us buy new gear and
Thanks, y'all.
Yeah, yeah, and so that's another need of the podcast, and then preparing for having guests over, or ideating on who the next guest wants to be, or like we've been after there's 2 or 3 guests that I've been working on getting here for like a year almost.
I worked on a couple people this year that took me a few months to get.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's just like timing is bad, or they really don't want to do it, but they're too nice to say they don't want to do it.
That happens.
Which is fine because I don't like rejection myself. So
leave it on red.
Just kick the can down the road a little bit for me until I forget about it. But those are all like the ones, I think, just because there's more credibility there, because I've done over 100 of them now, and there's names that they recognize on there.
Yeah.
Now people are a lot more willing to come over, and now they're even reaching out to me, like I said, a little bit. Does that answer your question?
That answers pretty well. What put you in the place to want to make a podcast? Like, what was your creative journey like to get there?
Well, I think just being someone who listens to a lot of podcasts, being a podcast user, and I don't know. I knew it couldn't be that hard to create one, and of course it's harder than I thought it was. But the technical part's not. The technical part I understand. The technical part is easy.
It's the creative labor that's the heaviest.
I guess so. Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. But yeah, I thought there were a lot of untold stories out there, and I'm just naturally curious, I think. And so to be able to have a microphone to be curious into, and get some of those answers.
It is enjoyable, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
It is. It's a lot of fun. Yeah. And I think we've kind of done that. There's been, a few repeat guests that have come on, which I didn't know if that was ever going to happen, because originally I thought, somebody comes on, they tell their story, and off we go. They've told their story, but there's a few folks who maybe they told their story, but they still have more to say next time. Or
so did you have a good time listening to Cornbread?
Listening to
Cornbread,
him on the podcast?
No, having him on the podcast.
Having him on the podcast? It's maybe my favorite one.
Oh, I love Cornbread.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you met him?
Oh, I know him. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's wonderful. He's on the fringe of one of my creative social circles. So yeah, I've seen him play a lot of music.
Yeah.
He's great.
Yeah, but like,
he'll be on the show at some point.
Some people, yeah, good. Some people had to turn that one off because they couldn't, because they just couldn't get there,
That's okay.
or they didn't like the F-bomb.
That's okay.
Yeah.
See, that's why I mark my stuff explicit. Like I don't want to put any unnatural constraints on this conversation. I just want people to say what they're going to say, and that's something he does for sure.
Well, Cornbread's a good example of somebody who's been on twice, and I've been playing phone tag with him for a few days now. I should probably have him back over we kicked off last year with him. So
oh yeah, you should probably call him back. Yeah,
have him back. We've been trying to get in touch with each other. Just can't seem to.
Dude, he's all over the place. He's recording an album right now. Did you know that?
No.
Oh, he is.
It'd be great for him to come by.
Yeah, he I'm sure he would like to talk to you about it.
Yeah. You know Curtis Glover?
I do. Had him on the show, and that's probably my worst sounding episode.
Really?
I apologize to Curtis. Yeah, my microphone setup was not as good as I thought it was, so when he moved around in the chair, I missed some audio.
Yeah,
but
that's why you got to wear your headphones, man.
Well, yeah, but that's on me. So whatever, I own that shit. We talked about it, but yeah, I know him. I've done similar events with him, and I know him mildly through social knocks. You know,
he's a big EDM guy.
Is he?
Yeah, he likes that stuff.
I know he listens to all kinds of stuff in his earbuds. I just have never picked his brain about it. Yeah.
Yeah, but he's another one who he's coming back here probably in the next month or so.
Cool.
And it's like he told his story, but still we have some the State of the Union to talk about.
Oh man, yeah.
Or his union.
So I ask people what it's like to be a creative person in Knoxville, because I want people to hear the relevant experience of being a creative person where they live if they live here and listen to this. I want them to have a different perspective onto their city or wherever it is these people are that they wouldn't have otherwise.
I have trouble I have trouble calling myself a creative person anymore because I feel like uh, it's become such a part of my daily life. What I do, from making video content or making this podcast, it doesn't feel like a creative thing for me anymore. And I don't know. And I don't mean that it's not enjoyable, because it is enjoyable. It just seems like automatic almost. You know
so
what I mean?
you're so familiar with the routine now.
Yes, I don't know if it's I don't know if that's what like burnout is or what, but it doesn't, like when I'm creating content for a client, like if it's a video, a commercial campaign or something like that, like I approach it in such a pragmatic way that I don't find myself sitting with my feet up daydreaming into the clouds about ideas. You know what I mean?
So is that a good thing or a bad thing for you being creative?
I don't know. You'd have to ask the people who see my stuff.
Okay.
Or listen to my stuff.
So you confidently can't answer that for yourself?
I don't know that I can, because I used to be that like air quote artist. You know what I mean? That was wanted to just create, and I do I mean, I don't have to make this podcast. I do it because because
you want to.
Because I want to.
Yeah, and selfishly you can. So you make it.
So I guess it is creative, I guess you could say, but I always kind of equated creativity to being artsy, and I don't feel artsy anymore, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I get that a lot. I just want to make stuff.
Yeah.
And it's not like I'm going to sit here and claim the title of a maker because, I build stuff or engineer stuff. It's just like, I want to make the things I want to see.
Yeah.
And whatever that may be. Like, I've sculpted things, I 3D print things all the time, like of my own, original designs. Like, I paint all the stuff I see in my head as much as I can. And if I can't trust somebody else to make the things I want to see, so I make it for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great. That's creative. That's creative as hell.
I tried to, like, it's just the logic I've attached to how that drive affects me as a human, because, I don't have to be creative. It just happens to be that I am, and it's part of my personality as, this thing.
Well, I'm jealous of you, man. I and like a bunch of people that I see, a guy named Jordan Peltz who I work with. He's a director and a wonderful writer and wonderful director. Great at lensing stuff too, cameras, probably one of the most creative people I know, and I'm so jealous of him for being so unencumbered with like he doesn't think about budget when he's writing a script.
He
doesn't think about but I think that to me is what creativity is,
right? Because you can whittle that back,
right?
That's a great place to start.
Yes, but to be unencumbered from reality when you create stuff, and that's why I think I not sell myself short, but I honestly don't feel like I'm a creative anymore, because I can't do that unencumbered creation. Like I'm always thinking about something that tethers it to reality, if that makes sense.
Well, then you're just between creative bouts. I'm not going to tell you you're going to sit here and never do that again. You just haven't done it yet.
Okay, I'll take it. But for me, like the thing that I want to create is experiences, I think. And that to me is like, rather than creating something tangible like a painting or I guess a video you would call tangible, instead of creating something like that, I would rather create a moment. Does that make sense?
Yeah, like a space and time.
Yeah. I would rather create something that happens and happened, and is maybe fleeting. That to me is like, has always been exciting to me. Creating moments between people, creating, almost like concert promotion or something, or music festivals. Like you're creating this place for something to happen, and it happens and it's over.
Yeah.
I'm talking about that on a micro scale.
Right.
Like making something like, oh man, we made, you and I made this happen. Sit down like this, that to me is creatively fulfilling.
And so everybody knows how small the world is. Like, I saw Curtis post about your podcast, I think a couple of weeks ago. And then, I went and looked at your stuff, found it on Spotify, listened to like 4 or 5 episodes, and I was like, I should give this guy a call. So I shot you a message on Instagram, and you were like, "Sweet dude, let's go," and here we are. So that's exactly how small the world is. There was 1 degree of separation between you and I via that channel.
Yeah.
So it's just one message into the ether, and then here this thing is.
Yeah. There you go. Not much to it.
I like how that works organically. Sometimes it doesn't always work like that.
Well, yeah. I have. I don't want to make stuff hard. I don't want to be the guy who kicks the can down the road and tell you that we'll get to doing this sometime. We'll do it next week.
Right.
Oh, something came up, can't do it.
Yeah, blah blah blah. My kids,
Yeah, I can have excuses all day. If you
right.
want an
So
excuse
can everybody
not to do
else.
it. Yeah,
right.
but I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to be the flake. I want to do what I say I'm gonna do.
Yeah, I generally try to stick to whatever date or context I put this thing in, because that's what I said I was going to do. That's the information the other party involved has. So if you do anything different, then they don't know.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I'm with it.
Cool.
I'm with that point of view.
Yeah. What are some of the other things that you ask or that you try to get into on your podcast?
There's general chatter. I'm not gonna lie, because
Okay.
that happens.
But you have a little bit of a track you like to keep it on, then you let it go from there.
I mean, in general, it goes anywhere from like 45 minutes to an hour and a half, and I can usually weave my questions into some general conversation that's art centric. It's not like we're just BSing about everything and its brother, and then all of a sudden I ask an art question. Like I try to steer it and keep the context of the conversation in an artistic genre. And then, the relevant questions I'll ask as they come up in conversation. So normally after I ask about somebody's workflow or their headspace, I'll say, like, well, what tools do you use, to exercise your creativity? Like, obviously you use all kinds of softwares and cameras and lights.
Sure.
Some people don't. So what do they use? And they'll tell me about it, and I'll ask them, what mediums have you practiced throughout your life? Like a lot of people start with watercolor or graphite pencil, and then they'll be like, oh, then I started oil, and then I picked up the trombone, and like all that kind of things.
That's great.
And then I started doing this or that. And the meandering of someone's creative journey is a really insightful topic to me. Like as a creative person, that's the thing I like to know about how you got to the style you're at now. So that way I understand how you got there to make that look that way.
Yeah. Who are some of your favorite interviewers?
Oh God, that's a funny question, because I don't think I've ever thought about that question.
Well, I pay attention to it now.
Yeah,
I never
exactly.
did before, but
I don't really have a good answer for that question, I think, and that might be poor of me.
Yeah, I'm all over the place. Like Mark Maron is the one who got me wanting to do this podcast.
I've listened to some of his content. I'm not the biggest fan.
Yeah. He's very opinionated about some things.
No, that's fine. Like as a comedian and creative person, I don't like, he doesn't entertain me as much as he does other people.
He entertains me as an interviewer. I don't like his stand up that much, honestly. I mean, it's good. Don't get me wrong, but it's not my style of what I think is funny. Maybe I'm too simple. He gets pretty out there and gets pretty heady. He's the one who got me into it. But then there's
I'm more of an Ari Shaffir kind of like ridiculous comedy kind of person.
Yeah.
Like that's I like listening to fantastic ridiculous things. Like I like the fringes of things.
Yeah.
Like, so I listen to ridiculous stuff, like just raunchy comedy and stuff like that.
Do you like Theo Vaughn?
Ish, yeah.
We almost had him on the podcast.
That would have been cool.
I know, dude.
He would have been a fun conversation to have. He's got all kinds of stories.
I know. Let's see. He's fine. He's a good interviewer, I guess. I like, but the ones I like that I started to pay attention to and go back and be like, these guys are really good. And obviously, when I say these names, you're gonna be like, yeah, they're good.
Yeah.
But Larry King,
he'd say whatever he wanted though, because his name was on the bill. He would say whatever he wanted. His name was on the bill. It's his production, so he just do whatever.
It's way different than anybody, any of the other people. Maron's style is Maron tries to relate it to himself. Larry King is just hitting you with some some pretty well thought out questions over the head.
Yeah, he wants to know things.
Yeah.
So he's asking those questions.
Yeah, but I also think Howard Stern is like a pretty good interviewer. And by good interviewer, I mean like finding the right way to ask the question that is evocative.
He definitely asks those questions all the time. He better
Not provocative, but
Right.
you know, to get somebody to get the right thing out of the interviewee. I think Howard Stern does a really good job of putting his questions together, and he gets he's the guy, who asked about his mom's sex life to her face. So
Yeah.
it's like, I mean, people just kind of throw him out as a shock jock or whatever, but like if you actually do this, if you actually interview people and realize that it is not, that it is kind of difficult, you start to appreciate guys like that who,
Yeah, it is kind of difficult.
yeah.
Like having to navigate your way through a conversation that isn't exactly comfortably fluid in some way or fashion is difficult.
Yeah.
And it can be terribly uncomfortable.
Do you get nervous before?
Sometimes, yeah.
Yeah.
I just try to ignore it, to be completely honest, because it's not doing me any good.
Yeah.
I'm there to do the thing. That's not the thing I'm there to do.
Yeah. I've got one coming up I'm pretty nervous about that I've had coming for a while, and I'm just super nervous.
Are you willing to disclose?
I'll tell you afterwards.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's why I asked the way I did.
Yeah.
Like, I ain't going to force it out of you if you don't want. Like, I ain't going to say nothing.
Well, no, I just don't want. If it doesn't happen, then
Right.
you know
Well,
what
hey,
I mean.
Look, I don't make no promises. Like,
Yeah.
as like you can't as a creative person. Like,
Yeah.
it's one of those things. I will tell people all the time. I would love for this to happen, and then the thing doesn't happen. That not that I didn't try. It just didn't work out.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
That happens with a lot of canvases. They ended up painted over black for a second time.
Exactly.
It happens. Like, I'll give it another go, but it didn't work that time.
Yeah. Well, dude, I'm glad to meet you. I'm really glad that we did this.
Yeah, I'm happy to sit here and chat in your other microphone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we should do it again sometime.
I'm up for it.
Hit me up whenever. We'll do it.
All right, sounds good, man.
Take care.
I'll have you over in my studio and aka secret recording space.
I'm there.
In my basement.
I'm there. Just let me know.
All right, we'll do, man.
Take
Thank you
care.
very much.
You got it.